One of the main issues affecting African American students is the school-to-prison pipeline, or STPP. The scary thing about it is that the STPP isn't a formal policy, but a covert phenomenon that systemic racism allows to happen. In today's video, Social Issue Essay, The School-to-Prison Pipeline, we're going to learn how the STPP works, what its causes and effects are, and what can be done to break this pipeline. But before I do that, I need to either welcome you back to my channel, depending on whether or not you've seen my videos before. In case you didn't get the memo, my channel is now called The Autistic Advocate and is dedicated to video essays on all things human diversity and social justice. If you like today's video, go to my channel page to see what else I have to offer and consider clicking subscribe. Let's start by breaking down what exactly the school-to-prison pipeline is. The school-to-prison pipeline is a series of education and public safety policies that push children and teenagers of color and from impoverished backgrounds into the criminal legal system. Schools and other institutions involve the police when such students commit relatively minor infractions, and these students are often arrested or referred to juvenile detention. This ultimately leads to criminal charges and incarceration, which only gets worse and worse over time. Even when schools don't directly involve the police and have them arrested on the spot, they can lead them through the pipeline indirectly via suspension, expulsion, discouragement, excessive detentions, and even double standards on homework and tests. So where does this pipeline all start? Zero-tolerance policies play an important role in maintaining the STPP. These are meant to maintain order and keep all students and faculty safe, at least in theory. But in reality, such policies and common enforcement tactics increase the probability of a youth coming into contact with the incarceration system. Zero-tolerance policies have led to the mistreatment of disadvantaged students' situation and strict disciplinary action, which greatly impact the student's future, causing them to go to juvenile detention centers or prison. Approximately 3.3 million suspensions and over 100,000 expulsions occur each year. This number has nearly doubled since 1974, with rates escalating in the mid-1990s as zero-tolerance policies began to be widely adopted, despite studies finding no evidence of an increase in misbehaviors in any demographic. Research is increasingly examining the connection between school failure and later contact with the criminal justice system for minorities. Once a child drops out, they are 8 times more likely to be incarcerated than youth who graduate from high school. Studies have found that 68% of all males in state and federal prisons do not have a high school diploma. Suspensions and expulsions have been shown to correlate with the young person's probability of dropping out and becoming involved with the criminal justice system. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, students suspended or expelled for a discretionary violation are nearly 3 times more likely to be in contact with the juvenile justice system the following year. However, it is unclear if the factors determining the risk of dropping out are not wholly or partially the same as the factors determining the risk of incarceration, as an individual likely to enter the criminal justice system is also likely to encounter difficulties within the education system. Another factor maintaining the STPP is the presence of police officers in school, who are supposedly there to help keep students safe by enforcing zero-tolerance policies. Ironically, school police officers actually contribute to patterns of criminalization with a contemporary discipline approach that's slowly starting to mirror approaches used in legal and law enforcement, particularly profiling. The purpose of profiling is to identify students who may engage in misbehavior, but the use of profiling is unreliable in ensuring school safety, as this practice over-identifies students from minority populations and overlooks students who are racially and socioeconomically privileged who are causing the real problems. Funny thing about that is, one of the reasons schools started having police officers on campus was to reduce and mitigate school shootings, but the demographics they tend to profile don't make up a very large percentage of mass shooters. The school-to-prison pipeline came up a lot during 2020. Let's talk about when and how. The year 2020 was defined by two things: the world being taken by storm by the global COVID-19 pandemic, and mass riots and protests against racially motivated police brutality following the killing of George Floyd. You'd think that when the schools shut down and learning went remote, the STPP would come to a temporary halt, but that wasn't quite the case. Since the nation's transition to remote learning, punishments including out-of-school suspension, juvenile detention, and police involvement have been enacted for minor infractions that have occurred in virtual learning environments. For example, in May 2020, a 15-year-old black girl named Grace with ADHD in Michigan was sent to a juvenile detention center for not turning in her online homework. The juvenile court concluded that her failure to submit her homework violated her probation and sentenced her to 78 days in juvenile detention. The public didn't take this very well, so her sentence was eventually shortened. In August 2020, Isaiah Elliott, a Colorado 12-year-old black student who also had ADHD, was punished after being seen on his computer camera picking up a toy Nerf gun during virtual class. Isaiah was suspended for 5 days by the school, which later contacted the police to conduct a welfare check before notifying his parents. So what can we have instead of the school-to-prison pipeline? It's important to have rules and discipline in schools so that there are no interference with student safety and ultimately their education. But in order to break the STPP, alternative discipline approaches need to be implemented so that it's less likely that students in need of correction go further down that path into the criminal system. One that's been proposed is something called restorative justice. The main idea of restorative justice is to ensure that students understand and learn from their behavior, as well as take responsibility for their actions and participate in steps that aim to repair the harm done to relationships between the student and the school environment. Programs such as restorative circles, restorative meetings, restorative youth courts, and peer mediation are already being used as alternatives to zero tolerance policies and harsh disciplinary practices. The idea behind these programs is that students should be encouraged to participate in their punishments, and school administration should refrain from using suspensions and expulsions for minor offenses. The goal of these programs is to keep students in school and to stop the flow of students from schools to the criminal justice system. If you ask me, this sounds like a much more effective way to address student misbehavior, as it holds them accountable for their actions while also giving them a sense of hope for the future, shows them that someone believes in them to do and be better. Unfortunately, the restorative justice approach faces quite a few obstacles in schools. It requires balancing the need for mediation with the other demands of education in one school day. Scholars acknowledge that to achieve proper, unbiased mediation, it will require training, support, and review. It's also crucial that an entire community, students, parents, teachers, staff, coaches, etc., are convinced it's a better alternative and willing to work together. And in some schools, that sadly isn't the case. A less formal approach to breaking the STPP might involve innovative ways of addressing the mental health of all students, which is often at the root of suspensions and expulsions. Once their mental health is taken care of, students feel more motivated to achieve academically, and that reduces the need they feel to release various emotions through disruptive means. Students with diagnosable mental health problems suffer under zero-tolerance policies. Such policies aim to create safer classrooms by removing potential disruptions, but in mental health, social services, courts, or other related fields believe they fail in this goal and may result in less safe schools and communities. School is considered a protective factor against delinquent conduct, and removing students from such an environment harms their ability to succeed. Zero-tolerance policies also fail to account for neurological development in youths. Studies show that the brain is still under construction until about 21. Youth are more likely to take risks, act impulsively, and exercise poor judgment. When these actions result in their involvement in the criminal justice system, they are punished rather than taught how to develop. The STPP is all around us, but it's kind of hard to notice since the system is so informal and well hidden. But at the end of the day, it hurts all of us. What do you think should be done about the STPP? When have you ever witnessed an example of it? Let me know in the comments down below. My YouTube channel, The Autistic Advocate, is all about socio-cultural issues just like the one I discussed today, but I also have 2 new channels with different niches that you should consider checking out if there's something you're interested in. And I've actually included links to the home pages of them up on your screen. I hope to see you again soon.